Okay, so today we're going to talk about how you can get clear, confident in your salary, and we're going to really identify what is the missing piece that might have been missing from your process in terms of looking for that salary that you deserve so far. I'm going to talk you through the learnings that I've had during my career and the learnings that have helped my hundreds of students in the Career Level Up program negotiate 4, 5, and even 6-figure raises. And I can see a couple of them are on the call today for a refresher, so welcome to them. Okay, so it's really about how to get paid what you deserve ASAP. And you're going to be able to do that without the awkward negotiation process and without being perceived as high maintenance or greedy, right? So that's really what we're going to be focusing on today. My name is Meggie Palmer, and I'm the founder and CEO of a company called PepTalkHer, and we're on a mission to close the gender pay gap. And yeah, I spent 15 years as a foreign correspondent before I started PepTalkHer. And during that time, I had an experience of pay inequality too. So I really do feel for all of you because I've been where you are, I've been in your shoes. So I'll talk you through my real world experience today and what I learned along the way. So why me? Why am I here today? As I said, I have had that experience of pay inequality myself. I found it very, very frustrating. I found it very, very unfair. But, you know, it was really interesting when I realized that I was experiencing pay inequality. I guess I'd kind of had the blinkers on for a lot of my career, right? So it was kind of a moment where those blinkers came off. And I realized that really what I wanted to do was help support others like yourselves to make sure that that didn't happen to you as well, right? So that's really what I'm all about now. I used to travel from Zimbabwe to Syria, interviewing people like Brad Pitt, and then people like Bashar al-Assad. So quite the spread of stories that I used to cover. But now 100% of my time is focused on supporting professional women to earn more money and to get promoted more quickly, right? And a shout out to anyone who's had an experience of a toxic boss who's made them think that they don't deserve any more money. I've been there too. So we'll talk through how you can overcome that. So you're in the right place today. If you're really looking to make a change in your career, even if your career confidence isn't sky high right now, don't worry, that's okay. That's what I'm here to help with. And really, if you're looking to add at least $10,000 to your salary, preferably 20 to 50K more or even more, that's really, you know, what today is going to help you with. So if that sort of fits the bucket of where you're at in your career, then today is really going to be very, very supportive for you. And the fact that you are here today learning tells me that you are worth more and that you probably know that you're underpaid right now, and that there's a bit of a niggling feeling that career or your salary or something just isn't quite right for you right now. That sense of feeling undervalued and underappreciated, it's not in your head. It's a real thing. And I've had that experience too. And you kind of question yourself, but you don't have to do that because we know that the gender pay gap exists. We know that unconscious bias in the workplace exists. So you are not bananas. It's a genuine thing. And if you're experiencing that and if you're here, I just want to validate that for you because it's really hard, but it is possible to get change, right? Even in the current economic climate. And so, you know, some of the things that might resonate with you, if you're overdue a pay raise, if you really love your work, but you want to feel more valued. And, you know, ultimately, what's the point of earning more money? Really, we want you to be able to invest that money. We want you to be able to have choice, right? And to be able to make better choices for yourself, for your friends, for your family, right? So if you're looking to be able to holiday and not even think about it, not even think about the cost, then, you know, that's another reason to kind of motivate you to have these conversations. A lot of the time people come to me, they attend these workshops or the challenge or one of our programs, and they just sort of feel like, well, it doesn't really apply to me. You know, like that's worked for other people, Maggie, but it's not going to work for me. But it truly, there is a bit of a roadmap that you can follow. You've got to customize it. And I'm going to talk to you about how you can do that today. But things can change, truly, even if you don't feel comfortable negotiating, even if your confidence isn't 11 out of 10, and even if you feel like in your job or with your boss or your employer, you're not allowed to. Well, that's not the done thing, right? Even if you feel like that, there is a way, a path through that, yeah? Even if you're working for a super bro company, shout out to all of you. And if you have like a really strong suspicion, or if you factually know that you are underpaid. And I also just want to acknowledge, you know, if you're returning from parental leave, and if you feel like your confidence isn't sky high right now, you know, mum of a newborn 4-month-old here as well, I feel you. And we've actually supported about 20% of our, maybe a bit more, maybe 25% of our students are actually people who are returning from parental or maternity leave, and who've had some pretty awesome results, which I'll talk you through in a second, right? You probably don't need to hang around if you're already getting 20% plus pay raises or $50,000 plus pay raises every year. You're probably good. If you've been out of work for more than a year, this isn't the right program for you, but I have got someone that I can refer you to. So you can send me a DM and I can support you there. And if you kind of think that this process is like a click of the finger, it'll be done in 5 minutes. That's not the case, right? Like what we're going to talk to you about today is it's a process. It really does take time, and there is preparation that needs to be done to get the results that you're looking for. I wish that I had a magic wand. I don't. I've got a magic framework, but that's going to still take you hours of preparation, right? And I'll talk you through how you can do that. So grab a cup of coffee, or if you don't drink coffee like me, grab a juice, which is my jam, or a water. It's worth focusing on this conversation today and take some notes, grab out a notebook, take some notes, take screenshots, get out your phone if you kind of want to take note of a slide, because it is super tangible today, super actionable. There's a toolkit that I'll give you. It's been tested, it's proven. As I said, we've got Yvonne, we've got other people on the call today who have been through this curriculum before. So it does work. And really that step-by-step process is what I'm going to show you today. And it's about anti-negotiating, actually, which we'll talk through in a second, and how you can put that in place to support you in your career. If you're new to PepTalkHer, if you've only just met me, hello. And just to give you a little bit of comfort, we work with some really large corporate brands as well. So we have the consumer side of the business, which is all of y'all. And then we also support very large corporate companies, right? Like Salesforce, like Microsoft, like HSBC. We work with big brands like that, supporting their leaders. So you can trust that the stuff that we're teaching you, it's not fluff. It's very practical, and it is based in the latest research as well, right? So that we know that it's going to get you the results that you're looking for. When I'm teaching the Career Level Up program, that the elements that you learn in that program are really very, very similar to what a lot of our corporate female leadership students are learning as well, right? So it's cutting edge, contemporary curriculum that you'll be learning as well. Some of the results that people get when they follow these steps they look different for everyone, of course. But like, for example, this is one of our students who sent me a message that she got a 14% pay increase, plus the same increase again on her bonus, right? Which is cool. But what's even cooler is that everyone else in the business was only getting a max of 5%. So you can see how if you actually put in that preparation piece ahead of time, you're going to sort of supercharge the results that you would expect from a normal performance review or a normal pay review, right? Welcome to everyone who is just joining us. One of the things that I want to really just sort of share with you today is that there is more money, right? And as I said, we work with very large global brands, very large HR teams, large companies. And one of the trade secrets that I can let you in on from behind the scenes is that, the insider knowledge that I'm aware of and that I want to share with you is that even when we're in tough economic times, even when there's a hiring freeze, I have seen it happen hundreds and hundreds of times. They will find money to keep the right people, right? And I want you to, if you don't want to write that down, you can. They will find money to keep the right people, right? It's a little known fact, but you've got to know how to help them find that money, where they can find that money, so that you make it really, really easy for them, right? And we're going to talk more about this in terms of the steps along the way, but ultimately what we're trying to do is collaborate with our hiring manager, with our boss, with our company. We're trying to collaborate to get the result that you're really looking for, okay? If you're wondering, is this even possible for you? Is it possible in my job, in my industry right now? And in short, yes, it is, if you know what you're doing, right? There are mistakes that I've seen people make throughout the years, right? And I don't want that to happen to you, but certainly if you follow the steps and if you follow the framework and if you're very committed to putting in the effort and the preparation ahead of time, you'll be able to identify your value so that you can really get the support that you're looking for. Thank you to everyone sending through those questions. I'm going to get to as many of those as I can during today's session. Cool. All right, here we go. Let me go ahead and share my screen for you again. Okay, so today I'm going to give you the strategy that you need to do this. And then at the end of the training, what I'll do is I'll share with you some more info about our flagship program that we run twice a year. And the final course for 2022 is launching next week, the Career Level Up program. So I'll share more info with you about that in case you're interested a little later in the program. If you want to hang around to the end, The good news is that we've got some awesome bonuses as well for people who want to kind of take that commitment and commit to the 8-week live coaching program today. The Salary Scenario Bible, which has every single negotiation script you could ever need. And also an awesome video series that gives you an insight into some of the top business leaders in the world, female identifying business leaders who talk about putting in place boundaries and how they've done that in a successful Fortune 100 environment without being seen as bitchy, right? Or without sort of taking a step back in their career. So we'll talk more about that towards the end of today's session. And that is available if you decide to join the Career Level Up program today. But first of all, what I want to talk about now is this is the reason why being clear, comped, and confident matters, right? Like, what's the point of having this conversation? Why are we even here today? Did you know that we actually spend more than a third of our life at work? Like a third of our life is spent in the workplace, which is pretty bananas, right? When you think about it. And so keeping that in mind, money really matters, right? And because you're all too smart to spend that third of your entire life doing something that's just like average or meh, like that's not enough. That's not what you're looking for. You're wanting more than that, right? So we want to make it count. And so money really does matter. And every pay raise that you get is one step closer to a financially secure life, which is one step closer to you being able to choose what you do with your day all day, every day. One step closer to being able to make any decision that you want for you, for your family, for your children, for your mates, for your pets, whatever the case may be. Because so many people say to me, but I'm doing okay. My job's okay. It's like I'm paid okay. And that's cool and that's great, but like that's not enough for you. Like I know that, otherwise you wouldn't be wasting 45 minutes of your time here with me today, right? So let's just map this out. So this is what happens if you negotiate an extra $5,000 into your pay packet a year, right? So that's the smallest raise anyone's ever, actually it was about $4,700, but we're going to use $5,000 because that's easier for round numbers. That's the smallest raise that's ever happened in the Career Level Up program. So let's take that number and sort of map that out, what that looks like. I pumped it into our salary calculator. And if you only get a $5,000 raise every year, which is the minimum I would be expecting for you, let's have a look at what happens. Over 40 years of that $5,000 being invested in compounding, it's almost $1.4 million. So while $5,000 now sounds okay, not bad, like not life-changing, but pretty good, this is what actually it looks like over 40 years in terms of if we look at what you could do with that money right now, plus taking into account the impact that that has on your retirement savings. It's really, really important to get those pay raises. I know that it might not seem like an awful lot of money, but it really does matter. And this is why, right? So it's really, really important to keep this in mind when we're psyching ourselves up to have these conversations, having a really clear why as to what's the purpose of me taking the time out of my day to spend the time preparing like Meggie's telling me to do. Why should I bother? This is one of the reasons why you should bother. And I want you to just take a moment now as well to think like, okay, $5,000 extra a year for you, $1.4 million throughout the course of my career. Like take a moment to think about like, what stresses could that reduce in your life? If you had an extra 1.4 mil in the bank, what would that change for you? Like, how would you make decisions differently? Let me know in the chat. I would love to hear from you what impact that would have for you. Would that change how you treated your family? Would that change, whether you could shout dinner with your mates at a fancy restaurant? Would it change the sort of pet that you bought or what you could do for your folks, right? Just have a think about that. And let me know in the chat the one thing that you'd be keen to do if you had that extra money, right? Is it about travel? Is it about hospitality? Is it about a house? Is it about your kids? What would $1.4 million mean to you and the family, right? Thinking about that motivation for yourself is really, really powerful. And it's an important step in this process, right? Because you need to have a why. Why are you here today? And why are you really committed to focusing on your salary and your career? Ooh, this is exciting. Someone's talking about real estate plans. I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Aisha. Thank you so much as well. Someone's going to put in a pool for their kids. So weird that you say that actually. One of our students, Meenakshi, did that maybe 4 cohorts ago. I think it was maybe 18 months ago. She was in the program and yeah, that's what she did. So that's cool too. A better retirement. Yeah, it's exciting, right? And like, again, it's, having that motivation is really clear. And I want you to think about like, yes, it's important to have motivation for what that money would mean, but also like inaction, doing nothing, here to be the bearer of a little bit of bad news, that actually costs you money too, right? You can't afford to be complacent about these things. because that's lost opportunity in terms of investments, that's lost opportunities in terms of the perception of your boss and your company. And that's lost opportunity in terms of compound interest as well, right? Particularly right now, like inflation is rife, as we all know. So you have to keep up with inflation at the very, very least, because it's making your paycheck smaller and smaller every single day. And so, as I mentioned, my name's Meggie. I've been underpaid in my career before. And, you know, I wasn't immune from confidence issues either. Even though I was a foreign correspondent reporting live around the world, I had toxic bosses who made me feel like I couldn't ask for a raise. And like, frankly, I didn't deserve a raise, even though I clearly did. And even though I was paid a lot less than the dudes who were reporting around the world alongside me, right? So my mission is really around teaching you the lessons that I've learned and that academics have been very kind to share with me. The lessons that I've seen have gotten our students results over the years. And the missing piece that I discovered in my career that I know is going to be game changing for you too. You know, so I was in the same situation. I was worked hard. I was super good at my job, but I just kept getting overlooked for promotions and pay increases as well. So let me know with a yes in the chat if this has happened to you too. It really sucks, right? And what I thought I had to do was like, I have to work harder. I just have to be better. I have to win more awards. But like, even when I did that, there was still people ahead of me in the queue. And I was like, people, I'm doing everything here. Like, what else do you want from me? But nothing was working. And I was still getting paid less than the blokes. And the reality is that, you know, we know that the gender pay gap is real. I thought that there was a mistake on our pay packets. There wasn't. Women are earning on average 15 to 20% less than men. And that gap is significantly bigger for women of color, right? When I raised the issue of unequal pay, I was told if I didn't like it, I could quit, or I could take my employers to court. Those were the options that I was given. And so long story short, I got a lawyer and I decided to stand up for my worth because I wanted to make it better for the women that came after me at that particular company. I was like, I'm not going to get mad. I'm going to get everything. Didn't quite get everything, but we did come to an agreement, and it was very, very stressful. And I would never wish that on my worst enemy. But now there's so many things that I would have done differently, and that I do differently in the career that I now have running my own business, right? But before any of that pay inequality saga happened, you know, for so long I was in this trap, right? Like my instinct was not to speak up. My instinct was to play nice and to be grateful, right? Because I thought that that's what I had to do. That's how I'd been socialized. I thought that I'd be penalized if I asked for more. And every time they said no, I just kind of smiled and nodded and said, oh, thanks anyway. Like, okay. And they kept saying, you should be lucky. You've got this great job. So many people would love this role. You know, like I just kind of felt stuck, like nothing was ever going to change, you know. And I know that this resonates with a lot of you, and I appreciate people who've been reaching out to me via email this week as well. But now looking back, what I can see is that other people had figured out the game. I hadn't. I honestly didn't even know what was going on around me, and I just didn't realize. And now I know, and I discovered eventually that there was a missing piece that I didn't have in my toolkit, that I had no idea even existed. And when I finally figured that out, like everything changed. And it changes for our students too. It's like there's this kind of like this mic drop moment where people are like, it's just kind of, you know, once you figure it out, you're like, and that totally shifts the way that you turn up to team meetings. It shifts the way that you have pay raise conversations. It shifts the way that you apply for jobs, right? So for me, I felt like really underpaid and undervalued. And then, you know, I tripled my salary in 3 years, and then I tripled it again, right? Because of figuring it out, you know, like, and that's kind of the turning point. Yeah, it's so true. It's like when you need to have that turning point in your career. And I'm hoping for all of you today, that turning point is going to happen today. And when I figured it out, the good news was I was able to keep kicking career goals, still doing work that I loved, still traveling the world, but I was actually working less and earning more cash, which is just like so counterintuitive. And it's not kind of what we're taught to think has happened. But figuring out that missing piece, it made me less anxious. It honestly made me more money. And I'm much happier now, right? And students in the Career Level Up program, as I said, they're looking at least 5K in extra pay. That would be the minimum. I would be expecting a lot more. 13% pay increases, sometimes 30% increases. We had 57% 2 cohorts ago, sign-on bonuses. There's all these other pieces of the puzzle that come into play as well when you're kind of really tracking towards a goal and really following a roadmap that's tried and tested, right? We're at more than $3 million cumulatively in pay rises and counting. I'm really proud of that. People just like you, right, who've negotiated through the anti-negotiation framework, improve success at work, right? And so, like, hey, that's great, Maggie. How do you do it, right? Well, so if you think about it, like if you wanted to get into college, right, there's a pretty solid playbook that you follow to get there, right? Like you go to a school, you study really hard, you take the tests, maybe get a tutor, and then you get that successful result that you're looking for, the admissions or the opportunity to study or do an internship or a trade, wherever you want to do it, right? And so if you think about it that way, it's like you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. And it's the same thing in terms of the career level up roadmap. You do this, you do this, you do this, right? Like that's all it is. You know, it's not rocket science. It's helpful and it's impressive and it's easy once you follow it, but it's just you do this, you do this, you do this, right? I just want to kind of break it down and make it very simple for you today. And the thing is as well, like when you're trying to get into college, you're not doing it alone, right? You've got teachers who are there to help you. You've got classmates to talk about it. You've got your parents to support you. Or if you're a mature age student, you've got family and friends who are there to support you. And it's the same thing with your career. You don't have to go this alone. You are not on your own, you know. And I think that's one of the powerful things about the challenge this week and about the career level up program is that you're doing it alongside a cohort of like-minded women, right? Who also want to find this success, who also want you to have success too. And they want to cheer you along the way. So this isn't just about like advice, you know, like it's an ABC framework that you're going to follow. Right. So I'll talk you through the 3 steps right now. And then in the career level up program, I kind of show you exactly how to implement them for your specific scenario. Right. So the first step of the roadmap that we're going to be following is the personal piece. Right. So being really aware on you and what you actually want. Right. Like, what do you actually want? Do you want to stay in that job? Do you want that 6-figure plus salary? Or do you want more freedom? Do you really want a 3-day-a-week working job with that salary? Or are you actually looking for more of a challenge at a bigger company? Like, what are you really looking for? And what would you love to be doing? And at the core of that is identifying what is the fear that's holding you back from getting there already. And we'll talk about that in a little more detail in just a second. Then the other thing, the next step along the way that people miss when they're navigating towards that next level in their career is the external piece, right? So I've got to figure out the personal piece. What do you really want? And then it's the external piece, like being aware of what's going on around you. That's critical, especially now, right? The economy, the state of the business that you're working in right now, the success of your team, of your clients, of the ecosystem. Being very clear on the direct impact that has on your success indicators is crucial as well, right? So that's the external piece that we need to be aware of. And finally, this is probably the most important piece, and this is the one that's always missing, and that is the human factor, which is the nuance and understanding your value and how best to communicate that to your boss. Because how you communicate that is different to how I should communicate that, which is different to how Sarah needs to communicate that. Right? There's no one size fits all for this. And so we'll talk you through the steps of how you can kind of, as best as you can, navigate that and then put that into practice for you and your scenario, right? And this works in terms of recruiters, bosses, prospective bosses, whatever the case may be. Ultimately, you're going to be positioning your ask as a win-win for anyone who you're speaking to during this process in your career. And so this is the only 3 steps that you need to follow, and it works even in the economy right now, even in your industry, and even in your current situation, right? There's a lot to unpack. Even if you hate asking for more, and even if, and I hear this a lot from people in different industries, oh, it's not possible because, you know, in my job, there's specific salary bands, so this doesn't even work. It can work. It can be harder. I will say it can be harder in certain industries, but it does still work. You just got to kind of flex it to work for your specific situation. Because most of the career advice that you might have already Googled or YouTubed or, you know, spoken to friends about, it can be a little bit helpful, but it's kind of often generic and it's not tailored specifically for you, right? And so that's a problem because at your level in your career, like generic's not going to cut it. You've already had, you know, 5, 10, 20 years of experience. And you're looking to get to the next level, rightly so, because you have a lot of value to add. So you're not interested in generic vibes. That's not a thing, right? So we really want to be able to tailor that specifically to bespoke to your industry, your boss, and your personal situation. And here's the thing that, like, most people that I speak to, when they think about their salary, when they think about their current career situation, they think about themselves. This is what I want. This is what I need. This is why I'm good. This is why I'm getting screwed over. And this is an outrage. And it's all about me, me, me. But actually the career level up roadmap is all about, like, okay, I want you to look outwards. What do they need? what does the company need right now? And let's actually flip the script, because when you do that, when you create those win-win scenarios, your employer basically like wants to give you the money. They want you to stay. They want you to step into that new role. They want you to happily create that job and go and build a team around you, because it's then not a you versus them, it's an us together approach. And I think that's a very big shift that a lot of people find when they're following that roadmap, right? So you're looking to identify your personal piece, the external piece, and that human factor, so that you can get the clarity that you need, the confidence that you've got to take into those conversations to get the comp that you're looking for. All right, so jump into it more specifically. And yes, it does work for not-for-profit. Great question. Just quickly, we had someone who was a consultant at one of the top tier consulting firms, pivoted into really wanted to pivot into not-for-profit, thought that she'd have to take a pay cut. Turns out she didn't, which was obviously a pleasant surprise. So we'll talk through that in some more detail too. So clarity, your personal piece, this is the most important step to nail, and something that you can start to think about after today's conversation. It's not generic advice, but I want you to actually start to believe and have the motivation that it is possible to get what you actually want, right? So for example, if I said to you, Nadesha, Anshu, Aisha, Isabella, if a prospective employer sat you down today and asked you to describe your value to a company in 10 words or less, can you do it? Can you describe yourself and your value in 10 words or less? You have to be able to do this successfully, right? And there's a reason why, and it's not just for job interviews or pay review conversations that you need to do this. But, excuse me, one of the first things we actually do in the program is teach you a system to really lay out your professional, personal elevator pitch. Because if you can't do that, if you don't know, then how can you expect your boss to know, or the executive team to know, or that new company to know, or your LinkedIn followers to know, right? So we actually also utilize a bunch of proprietary tools that will help you unpack what makes you different to everyone else on this call today, what makes you different to everyone else in your team right now. So that's actually very, very important. And that's actually one of the first steps that we take, and really a lot of the times when people are kind of trying to identify like what they really want in their career, when they're looking for that clarity, it's about figuring out what's holding you back. And I hear all the time, well, I'm not good at negotiating, so I just don't ask. I'm going to be seen as high maintenance, or I'll be penalized if I ask, so I'm just not going to say anything. And ultimately people are like, well, if I unpack the layers of the onion, I'm actually afraid that I'm just not worth more, that I'm not worth being paid that, and that I'm not good enough to get that promotion. And it's fear, right? Like at the core of a lot of what holds us back, and what's held me back for years in the past, back when I was a journalist and then, working in corporate America, it was fear. And so the biggest thing to overcome in the first step of the roadmap is fear, and unpacking that, right? And when you get clear on what's holding you back, you can solve for that and move forward, right? And so when I think about students who've been through the program before, like a lot of them, things that were holding them back was thinking they had no transferable skills, so they couldn't pivot industries, or that there was no more money in the media industry, so it wasn't possible for them to be paid more. But the reframe that we did during the program meant that like there was actually a way to shift their mindset around that and ultimately shift the outcome. Like Jane, for example, she did pivot industries from the retail industry now into the tech space, which is like so cool. Amazing results that she's had now working as a product manager for a household tech company, which is super cool, right? And so when you figure out, actually, I do have transferable skills. Actually, there is a way for me to reframe the experience that I've had in the retail space to pivot into the tech industry. Anything's possible, but it's hard often to see that when you're in it in the moment. You sometimes need, a program like the Career Level Up, or like the colleagues in the cohort around you, to kind of get you to take those blinkers off, so to speak, so that you can start to see what's possible. A lot of students say to me, well, I'm coming back from maternity leave, so, I'm just going to be put out to pasture. There's no pathway for me to get a promotion, let alone a pay increase. That's just never going to happen. But it does happen, and it can happen, right? If you're able to identify your personal piece and how that sets you apart from other people in the business and in the industry, right? So I wanted to give you those examples so that you can see that, like, even if you're kind of not clear about how you would muddle your way through that, having the support of the program and the cohort will really help support you. So here's some more examples, like people who were holding themselves back from even applying from those promotions, fearing that they wouldn't be considered, people that were desperate to escape toxic bosses, fearing that they'd get fired if they did call out a toxic boss, fearing that they'd have to take a pay cut if they moved into a job that they truly wanted to do. There's a lot of fear that holds students back. And when we overcome that hurdle, everything else opens up, which is exciting. Okay, so we've done the personal piece, and then the second missing piece that you need to be aware of, right, is the external piece. A lot of people forget this step, right? Because again, they might start to focus on themselves, but then they forget that there's actually other factors at play, right? Sometimes you're told no, and it's actually nothing to do with you or your boss. It's because of external factors. So you can't forget this step. It's pretty crucial. It's the power that you can actually find when you're aware of those external factors, right? And what do I mean by that? Because often people say, well, in the current climate, how can I have any leverage? And you actually need to delve deeper than that, because it's in the way that you're positioning yourself and your value, and it's in the way that you're understanding that external piece, right? Because you want to be very clear on variables like the economy, like office politics, which we spend an entire week on in the program, like non-monetary benefits, like the industry and what's happening trend-wise, like company performance, right? Being really strategic about how you think about those external factors can totally change the way and the tone of how you actually engage with your career moving forward, right? So I don't want you to forget that piece. And the other step that's in this external process is this process of anti-negotiating. So rather than approaching these conversations from a negotiation mindset, which brings up a lot of fear for a lot of us, shifting that away from a negotiation and towards the value that you're adding, the awareness that you have of the external factors, and how you can actually help support the company, even if the current external factors maybe are not stacked in your favor, right? So that external piece and being clear on that, those factors and how you actually need to drip feed those into the conversation with your boss or prospective boss is very, very important. And thank you to Anne, who's saying that they're reading a book called Stop Playing Safe, talking about fear and how it holds us back. Yeah, it's dangerous, hey? It's really scary. Okay, so then step 3 is the human factor. Now, this factor, this step in the process is like hardly ever, no one ever hardly remembers it. No one even hardly knows about it. People think, okay, well, I know my value and what I want. I'm aware of those external factors. Let's go. But actually, that's not enough, because if you're negotiating with me, that's very different to if you're negotiating with Anne, which is very different to if you're negotiating with Kelly. And I'm sure you've all had bosses in the past that respond differently to different ways of negotiating or anti-negotiating, as the case may be, in the career level up, right? Different bosses, different genders, different personalities respond very differently to how you engage with them. I had a boss once and he hated it if you talked to HR. He hated it. If you ever went to HR, even for something legitimate, even not for anything dodgy, just to ask about a policy, he hated it because he felt that reflected badly on him, right? So this piece of the puzzle, this missing piece that I want you to remember, the human factor, is so important. And I would have made a lot less mistakes if I'd been aware of this earlier in my career, right? So you're clear on your personal piece. We're clear on the external value and leverage that we have and the power that we have. But the variable that a lot of people forget is the human factor. So what do I mean by that, right? Like, if you think about, there's people, like, I want you to think about places where you've worked in the past. You know those people who always get promoted and they always just seem to like fail upwards no matter what happens? And often, everyone's like nodding, yes, I've seen that before. Often it's because of the human factor, right? And let's talk about how we can make that human factor decide in your favor. It's tapping into the fact that people like doing business with people that they like. People like people that they like on their team, right? I'm not saying that that's fair. I'm not saying that that's equitable, but it's the reality, right? So the human factor is really reading the room and understanding the whole picture of what's going on so that you can navigate for what you want and need, right? So that you can set yourself up for successful salary conversations and using your knowledge and intel of the humans around you in the business in a way that's strategic, right? Really, that's what it's about. So for example, like, if your boss is having a shocking day, and if you've seen her like yelling at people all day, if you've seen her running around like a headless chook, maybe not the right time or day to sit down and have a conversation about your salary. Maybe you want to postpone that call, right? It's being aware of ego. It's being aware of home life scenarios. It's being aware of the office politics that are at play with maybe a promotion that they're jockeying to get within the business, right? It's being aware of all of those pieces that so many other people forget, right? And the reason that this matters is because, you can sort of like, you can direct your boss to knowing your value and to being aware that you are contributing to the team. But if you've got that great relationship, if you're tapping into that high emotional intelligence, that high EQ piece, then it's a totally different scenario, right? You're being aware of their attitude towards pay. So the way that you broach it, the way that you start to plan for roadblocks is different from one boss to another. Understanding the influences that are impacting them within the business, the relationships that they have with people up, down, and across the food chain within the company, the personal circumstances, right? Taking into account that human factor is very nuanced, but it can have a huge difference, right? In terms of the outcome that you get, and also how you feel after navigating towards that outcome, right? And ultimately where I want to get you from today, and then indeed in more depth in the Career Level Up program, is getting to a place where these conversations feel good, where there's not that pit of sick feeling in your stomach, where there's not that high anxiety around having those conversations, where actually you're steering the ship of your career every single day, right? You're steering closer to the outcome that you want through the relationships and through really tapping into that human factor so that it works to your advantage, right? So I'll give you an example. One of our students, B, she is a very senior media exec, 15, actually probably 18 years now. And she didn't kind of realize the leverage or the power that she had, right? Until she went through the program, and she had that kind of light bulb moment. And she sent me this message and she was like, oh my God, they've agreed to 100% of what she asked for. So she got 50K extra in her base. She got a higher duties allowance, and she got executive coaching paid for by her company, right? Which is pretty bananas. And the way that she did that was, and she, as you can tell kind of from the screenshot that I've sent here, was like, she couldn't actually believe it, because she didn't like stomp her hand on the desk and be like, bang her fist on the table. This is what I want. This is outrageous. That's not what she did, right? What she did was she understood her personal piece. She understood the external factors, and she really tapped into the human factor of the multiple stakeholders who she was having that conversation with, right? So let me know in the chat if any of this is resonating with you, and if there's one word that this is kind of bringing up for you. What's the one shift that you're sort of noticing that's coming up from you just from the conversation we've had thus far? Just pop one word in the chat and let me know how this is making you feel. Because I want you to see that shift even from today's conversation. And I know that shift is going to be like exponentially bigger if you kind of commit to really focusing on this and putting your career at the forefront of your energy, your time, and your effort over the next 8 weeks in the Career Level Up program. Helen's excited. Awesome. Oh, love to see it. Erin's feeling empowered. So cool. So cool. I love it. So getting excited and feeling empowered about your career, that's awesome. Like, that's the place where I want you to be behaving from. I don't want you to be behaving from a place of fear or trepidation or anxiety or concern. That happens for all of us, don't get me wrong, but we want to really control that. We want to harness that energy and propel it for good and for better, right? Confident to make a difference. Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad it's helpful, Gladine. That's awesome. So at the start, we talked about how the roadmap's going to help you find the salary and career that you're looking for, right? From understanding that personal piece. Then we talked about how what makes this system really work is the external piece, and navigating that is what can help you get those massive raises as well, with the nuance that needs to happen, and taking into account all of those external factors that impact anyone's ability to promote you or give you a pay raise. And then, the third piece that we talked about is really that human factor. And it's my goal in the course to really help you understand that and to be able to navigate that, not just in your next salary conversation, but indeed to have as a tool in your toolkit for the rest of your career, right? And this is something that it's like a muscle. And I know I talk about this a lot, but it's like, if I want big biceps, mine aren't too big at the moment. I've been on maternity leave. But if you want big muscles, nothing's going to happen after a day or two. But if you keep going, it gets bigger and bigger. And it's the same thing when it comes to our mindset around our career, right? I want that to be really, really strong so that you're always in every meeting, in every interaction, coming from a place of power, right? And as I say, I wish that I'd known this, gosh, I don't even know where my career would be if I had any of this info, maybe like 5-10 years ago, back when I was working in the corporate space. But ultimately, I think what it comes down to, the system, you've got an understanding of how that works. If you want to implement it further, we can do that in the Career Level Up program. But really, more importantly than all of that, like, you have to choose a road, Like, you have two choices today, and one choice is to take the next step, right? To take that action so that you're propelled and that momentum takes you forward, 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 up, up, up in your career. The other option is to kind of do nothing, or to absorb what you've learned today and just kind of ruminate with it, which is fine. But like, how long are you going to keep ruminating? Do you know what I mean? And sometimes, I don't know about you, but like, I suffer from procrastination sometimes, right? And so for me, I know what's really important for me is to have accountability, and to have structure in place so that I take a baby step regularly towards the goals that I want to achieve, right? And for me, that's why I invest. I hate to even say it out loud, how much I invest in coaches and programs every year to support my personal growth and my business growth, because I know that without that structure, without that support, and frankly, without that camaraderie of the cohort, I struggle to get things done, right? So that's something that's important to me, and that helps me work towards those goals. So it's my hope that this course will be that momentum builder, will be that accountability buddy for you as well, right? So and open the enrollment. I'm going to have Kim on my team open the Career Level Up program today. It's open for the next 4 days, and then class starts next week. We're jumping straight into it to really put into place the system that I've talked about today. You know what it is, so do with it what you will. But if you want to figure out like exactly how you tweak that for your scenario, for your industry, for your job title, that's what we're going to be implementing over the next 8 weeks together in the Career Level Up program, right? So it's an 8-week program with me as your live coach. We meet for 90 minutes every week, 60 minutes of curriculum, and then a 30-minute open Q&A every single week for those 8 weeks. So you'll graduate before Christmas. And it's there to support you, right? And there's we have 8 specific modules, which I'll talk you through in a second. If you want to go ahead and jump in now, you can do that. I'm going to talk you through some more info now as well. Basically, you enroll, you get instant access, and then you'll get all the calendar invites so that you can join us on the live calls from next week. So the way that it works is every single module is broken down to get you outcomes that you need. So increasing your confidence and banishing imposter syndrome, finding your fulfillment to get paid well and following that roadmap. And also, I think what's really important about this module is setting those boundaries and landing on what your ideal work hours are and how you can have a conversation around that to achieve them. Like Nikki, she got I forget the exact percentages, but maybe it was 30 grand. I can't remember. It was somewhere between $20,000 and $40,000 extra that she was able to land, and her days went down. So I think she went from 4.5 days down to 3 days. So that was cool, right? Because it is possible to get things like that, right? So getting paid what you deserve, the anti-negotiation framework, being able to land a dream network so that you can create a constant opportunity flow. Because I want you all to be in a situation where you're not ever looking for jobs, where those job opportunities, those advisor opportunities, those board opportunities come to you because you're coming from a place of power and leverage, right? Because of the steps that we talked about today, right? So that's how the program works. So every module we cover, we spend 2 weeks on all of those modules through the live coaching program. And then there's like a back end where there's heaps of videos and toolkits and scripts and stuff like that you can access too. And then we dive deeper into that curriculum. And then specifically, we talk about how you can implement that to get the results that you actually need. We have a private Slack channel as well, so we can kind of tic-tac back and forth with that personal feedback throughout the week in between those coaching sessions as well. So, a big question that everyone always has is like, how much does it cost? So it's $397. It's $397, and then it's 5 payments. So it comes to around $2,000 if you pay up front. I think it's $19.97 if you pay up front, and then you can put it onto a payment plan if that's easier from a cash flow perspective as well. That's what I always do, just because my accountant tells me about cash flow. So that's what I do. So yeah, it's 6 payments of $397 or just the one-off of $19.97. And from a return on investment perspective, I'm a big investor, so I'm all about the ROI. Like typically we would see a 4 to 8x return on investment. So for example, if you're spending $19.97, I would want you to be earning at least, $7,000 or $8,000 more in your pay packet to justify the fact that you've spent that. Right. But if you think about it, if you get a $4,000 pay increase, then you've obviously doubled your money. We've had people get 30x returns. That doesn't happen every day, but it does happen. We've had 3 students in the program in the past 2 years get 6-figure pay increases. One of them worked in finance. She was on maybe 250, maybe 230, 250, and she moved into the 300 plus bracket after the program, which was cool. But a lot of people, as I say, are getting anywhere from sort of 5, 10, 15, $17,000 increases, 20, 30K, that kind of thing. You know, so Megan, she got a 30K increase, and she, you know, which is great. But what was more important for her, honestly, and what she's going to take with her into her future jobs, is that she just didn't realize how underpaid she was in the first place. So sometimes that's a process that people go through as well, that they're actually being screwed over, frankly, on their pay to start with. So we get them to realize that, and then they get a bump as well, right? So that can be really helpful. So as I say, from a math perspective, if you're earning 100K, and if you get a 5% raise, which honestly you'd be wanting to get at least that right now because of inflation, that's $5,000. So that's, you know, that's a 3x return on investment that you're getting there as well, which is cool. Oh, here we go. So this is cool too. As I say, the number of days that you work in a week. So I work a 4-day week. Before I had Hugo, I worked a 4-day week because I like having fun Fridays, is what I call it. So a lot of the students are kind of looking to negotiate those more flexible work arrangements as well. So you can see this. She would like to remain anonymous. But you can see that she was able to advocate for herself to get more money, but also to duck down to that 3-day a week. And this is Sarah, very, very cool. She was like, she's earning 6 figures for the first time in her life, which is so exciting. And we were so happy to hear this for her for a variety of reasons. She had a really tough year. So she was pretty blown away, which was cool. Great question. So Catherine's asking, is it in Australian dollars or US dollars? It's in US dollars. Where I'm based in the US, except for my accent. Don't hold it against me. I am Australian. So yeah, it's in US dollars, because that's where we're based. And that's, I would say 60% of our students are American, maybe 20 or 30% of our students are Australian. And then we have a smattering of people from around the world. And honestly, that's one of the fun things about the program is like, yes, the content is amazing. Yes, you're going to earn more money. Yes, that's great, etc. But honestly, like maybe even the best part is the people that you'll meet, you know, people who work at, you know, Zendesk, who work at Salesforce, who work at PwC, who work at small law firms, who work at small consulting firms. There's heaps of marketers in the course, a lot of people working in tech, a lot of people in finance and banking in the program. We've had a farmer go through the program. So, you know, that community feel is really valuable as well. And perhaps the most valuable part of the program for a lot of people too. In terms of how much time you need to dedicate to the course. So if you can commit to the 60 minutes of the live course training, that's the main thing. There is an extra 30-minute Q&A optional. If you want to join for the full 90 minutes, you can. If you just want to come for the Q&A because you've got something you want to unpack, that's cool too. Yeah, and then you get access to there's a portal on the back end, and you log in and you get all of your scripts, all of your PDFs, all of your workbook in the one place, which is super cool. You get instant access. And again, like taking that step and actually enrolling is like that first step, you know, it's kind of like going to the gym, like the first time that you lift the weight, it's like taking that first step. If you're not into it, if the course isn't for you, that's totally fine. We do a 7-day refund period. So if you're like, I was into it and now I'm not, or it's not what I thought it would be, that's fine. You can just let me know. I'm confident that you're going to love it. We have had maybe 3 refunds in the course of 2 years of running the program ever. Hundreds of people through the course, right? So it doesn't really happen, but you can kind of join and be confident that you can test it out for a bit, see what you're vibing. And if it's not for you, then you just let Kim and I know and we'll sort you out. One of the other really important things that the course covers as well is like, but what if my boss says no, right? Or, but what if the recruiter says no? How do you navigate that? That's a really important thing that is different for everyone. It's a bit of an exact science, but it's not challenging to navigate it once you've got the script to go through this. No worries, Ali. Thank you for joining us. Let me go ahead and actually pop the link in the chat too. If anyone's got questions, pop them into the chat for me and I will get to as many of those as I can for you all. But here is the link if you do want to join me and the cohort in the program. There will only be 50 students. There will only be 50 women in the program. So you can be confident that you're going to get that one-on-one contact from me and from the team. I'm in the Slack every day because I'm a bit of a nerd like that. So you do have that capacity to kind of ask questions as things come up for you, et cetera, et cetera. And this is the Slack channel here. You can see there's some screenshots of some of the success that people have had This was pretty bananas, 52,000 extra on the base, and then the capacity for an extra 46 if she hit targets on the bonus, you know. So I like to be very transparent about this. Yes, there was an increase in her base, potentially a lot more. I'm not sure how much of the upside has happened because, you know, her financial year isn't over yet, right? But people, you know, when they come through the program, they say things like, you know, I'm very successful in my career and I do all my professional development from a skills perspective, like a hard skills perspective, but I forget to focus on myself. We actually had a CEO of a large travel company come through the program recently. And she was like, I've always worked so hard. She was a McKinsey consultant and then became a CEO. And she's like, but I never stopped to focus on me, right? And actually what I needed to improve about myself and to understand about myself so that, yes, I can negotiate better and earn more, but also so that I could be a better manager, right? And so I could kind of nail that human factor as we talked about today and build that bigger network so that you've got that support. Yeah, so courses.peptalkher.com. If you want to join up, you can always hit me up with any questions. But, you know, for me, I like to think about like, what's the worst case scenario? I don't know if it's the journalist in me. Like I always just like to factor in like, what is the worst case scenario? And then I work back from there. So if you think about it from the career level up perspective, if the worst case scenario is that you got the confidence to go for a raise, to ask the question, would that make the course worth it? If all it did was give you one skill to help you pivot into a better paying job, a better values aligned job in 3 to 6 months from now, would that make the investment worth it? And if it gave you the visibility on LinkedIn in terms of your personal brand and your network to be tapped for a board role, would that make the investment worth it? Like, so for me, those are kind of the worst case scenarios. And then we can extrapolate, you know, all of the best case scenarios until the cows come home. You know, there's so many examples of students who've had success, et cetera, et cetera. And I can talk to you about that if you've got specific questions about people in certain industries, but, you know, I don't want to bore you with that. I just like to be really realistic with people about what the impact can be, what's the time frame within which time people typically see success. Some people get the results during the course, maybe 30 or 40% of people during the 8 weeks get those results. And then there's maybe the same again, people who sort of take somewhere between sort of 3 to 6 months. It can take a little longer depending on how much politics you're navigating, depending on how quickly HR moves within certain companies, all that kind of stuff. It really just depends. But yeah, it's, you know, I want all of you today to know that it's possible for you, truly. Like, I believe that because you're here. If you weren't here, like, it would mean that you didn't care and that you don't have any capacity to kind of grow and change and evolve, but you do. And so like that change is possible. And I wish I could tell you more about Sarah's story, but we don't have the time. But as I said, like, she just like, where is Sarah's story? She just like lost her mind. So she wasn't earning 6 figures when she came into the course. And then she was, and I think she's still in shock, like 6 months later. I think she's like, wait, what? How did that happen? Because it's possible, you know. And as I said, we have a lot of people in the course who are earning 200,000-300,000, and they got increases too, right? And if you're feeling like, oh, I'm a bit hesitant, like, I don't know, like, just ask yourself the question, like, why are you walking away? Like, what fear is impacting you today? And what do you need to do to unpack that, right? Whether it's on your own time or whether it's with me and the cohort. But I do want you to sort of challenge yourself on that. And I do challenge you in the course. Like, I'm not gonna just tell you that everything's roses all the time. Like, there's some tough love that happens because that's where the growth happens. And if you wanted things to stay the same, you wouldn't be here, right? Like, you'd be having a coffee or watching Netflix. But if you do want to see change, like 100%, it's possible. And tomorrow, actually, same time, I'm going to run another session just with a bunch of graduates from the program, an Ask Me Anything session, so you can actually talk to them. It's easy for me to say all this because, of course, I would say this. It's my business. It's what I've built over the years. But I want you to hear it from them. And I just say to them, there's no scripts. You guys say what you liked, what you didn't like, what helped. What was the biggest surprise for you in the program? So you'll be able to hear from the horse's mouths, so to speak, tomorrow. And ask them what they think about the course and how they think it could help support you. Yes, okay, good question. And she wants to know, what time is the coaching call? So let me bring that up for you really quickly. So it is in the evening, Eastern Standard Time, which is lunchtime for y'all in Australia. So let me just quickly screen share this so you can see. Okay, so same time, same place every week. So the first call is next week. Woohoo! I'm excited. 5:30 p.m. in LA, 8:30 p.m. Eastern for those of you in New York like me, which is 11:30 a.m. in Sydney. So it runs over the lunchtime in Australia. And you'll graduate the program before Christmas. So you've got the capacity to really take advantage of the end of year momentum with performance reviews and making sure that you can really get that budget allocation for your salary by the end of the year, or at least from January 1, right? New calendar year is a great excuse to advocate for a pay increase, which is cool. So that's why this course is structured specifically to make sure that you graduate before the end of the year. Yeah, no worries. That is, yes, good question. Yes, they are the same time every week. It's every Tuesday Eastern time, which is every Wednesday for those of you in the Asia Pacific region. Time zones makes it a bit confusing, doesn't it? But Tuesday evenings for those of you in North America, and very late for our European friends. And then it's sort of lunchtime Wednesdays for those of you in Australia, New Zealand, and the Asia Pacific region. If you've got any questions, pop them in the chat. I'm gonna jump through to more and more of those as I can. Okay, good question, Catherine. This comes up all the time. Confidential pay bands, all that kind of stuff. It's so frustrating, isn't it? There's ways around that, and we talk more about that in the program. And there's a couple of students who've had that exact scenario, actually, who I can link you up with in the private Slack group. So I'll do that as well for you also. I'll actually connect you with people in the course who might be helpful for you to transparently share about salary or to make introductions or whatever. But we do have people who've worked in the medical field, in government, in public policy, where there were pay bands. And sometimes people have clauses where they're not allowed to talk about their salaries. So we give you a script as well to kind of navigate around that. But there is a way you can find that out. A lot of it is to do with your network, and a lot of it is to navigate the office politics properly and correctly, right? So there is a way to do that without stepping on toes and without overstepping boundaries of legal implications and stuff like that. And I mean, ultimately, even if you're not clear, and even if those bands are confidential right now, you still want to make sure that you're taking steps to figure out what that looks like. And also longer term, my other question, I'm just going to give you a bit of unsolicited frank and fearless feedback here, is like, ultimately, is that where you want to be in 5 years from now, right? Because if it is, then we would approach that in one way. If it isn't, we would approach it very differently. So the leverage and the levers that you pull are different depending on the future, right? Which is that personal piece. That's the first step. So we're going to uncover that personal piece, because that then changes how we apply the rest of the steps of the roadmap. Yeah. So that's important that's why we kind of spend that time doing that part of the step too. So let me go back. And also, listen, as I say, like, ultimately today is about, I want to encourage you to make a choice, right? To either take what you've learned today and do it yourself. If you're a DIY type of person, go for it. People can DIY it. Sometimes there's nuance that means that if you DIY it the wrong way, it can be quite damaging. However, if that's more your style, go ahead and please keep me posted. Like, I'm going to be cheering you on from the sidelines. If you feel like you want to really nail it, you want to get it right, you want to make sure that there's no room for error, you want to lock in that pay rise by the end of the year, and you really want to make sure that you're steering things towards where you want your career to go, not where your boss wants, not what your parents want, towards where you want to go in the long term, then I would highly encourage you to make a decision today to step up with all of us, to join the 50 people in the program, to join me, and to know that you've got my support every single week, every single day in the Slack channel to figure it out, right? Because it's not always easy. There's some uncomfortable looking inward that I encourage you to do through one of the frameworks. One of the it's like a mini program. It doesn't take long, maybe it takes 20 minutes, but it's going to give you some aha moments like, oh my gosh, this kind of blew my mind, to better understand yourself, right? And those aha moments will keep happening as we progress the learnings throughout the 8 weeks of the program. And then, there's, you get these specific salary negotiation scripts that you're needing. You get the salary Bible, you get access to checklists, you get full compensation sheets, so you can kind of go through and literally just check that you've asked for everything that's possible. We talk you through the different line items of budgets within companies that have capacity to give you extra injections of cash in different ways into your salary, which is game changing, because it means you don't forget anything in the moment, in the stress, and it also means that you're going to really maximize that capacity for you to have the most pre-tax money into your salary as well, right? Because yes, there's the money that's in your pay packet, but then there's other things we can sneak in there too. Great question as well. Is this tax deductible? Sadly, I'm not an accountant, but yeah, most people who pay for it themselves deduct the cost of the course from their taxes because it's considered professional development, because it's considered something that's ultimately going to make you pay more money and pay more taxes and improve at your job. So it's a tax deduction. Also, some people's employers will reimburse them for the program too. So we can always send you a fancy invoice that says what you need it to say, so that you can get it as a tax deduction. So most employers will give you a professional development allowance of anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000. So we can actually give you an invoice so you can join the program, and then we'll give you an invoice to show them the leadership components. We tweak it so that we don't focus on the pay, and so we focus on the leadership stuff more. And then people get reimbursed. So we had maybe 13 people get reimbursed in the last cohort from their boss. Sometimes the corporate credit card, people are allowed to use their corporate credit cards. I'll leave that in your very capable hands to figure that out. But I have got a email that you can use to send to HR or to your boss to ask to have this covered. So let me get you that as well, because that'll be super helpful for you all. Yeah, so, but from the tax deduction perspective, I'm not allowed to give that advice because I'm not an accountant. You should talk to your accountant. But put it this way, I deduct all of my coaching and all of my programs that I invest 5 figures in every year. So I'm going to hypothesize it's the same for you. So here's, there's a heap of bonuses that you get as well. You get lifetime access to the portal. So as we update stuff, which we do every 6 months, that'll all be there for you. If you've got a huge conversation coming up at a new job, you can go back and rewatch that 3-minute video or that 30-minute module or that 60-minute coaching session just to kind of get you in the right headspace and give you that pep talk that you need. You get access to a coaching vault. So all of our past coaching calls you get access to as well. Obviously the peer effect through the Slack group with the other, hundreds of professional women that are in there. You get the comp checklist, the what if they say no script as well. And then for anyone who's joining in the next 24 hours, the bonuses of the LinkedIn makeover, the salary scenario Bible, which has, I think there's like 30 or 40 different templates that literally you can say or email to handle different objections that might come up in any career negotiation. Yeah. So, because, we know that you're probably leaving money on the table. I don't think I've ever had a student, I haven't, I'm just trying to think. No, we've never had a student who's gone through the program saying, yeah, no, there's no way I could get any more money. I'm being paid amazingly. Like that's just never happened. Sometimes, occasionally, people will say no to the salary piece. And so then what we do is we pivot back and we get money for them in other ways, right? And we talk about that more. And as I said, there's a checklist as well. So there's ways to get pre-tax money in other ways, or get time back. So people will negotiate for work from home hours, or they'll go from a 5-day week to a 4.5 or a 4-day week, et cetera, et cetera. So non-monetary benefits as well is something that we cover in the course too. But if you have more questions, let me know in the chat, and I'm going to pull up as well the script that you can use for an employer, if that is helpful. So you can actually send that to your employer, and it's just you can plug and play, like to have them to reimburse you. Let me get you that. Oh, it's in the email. You're going to get an email about it too, but I'll find you that and pop it in the chat now too. But does anyone have any other questions about the course or how it works? I'm just trying to, let me see if there's any other students who've been through the program before. I can maybe dob them in. I saw some of them on here before. They might have had to bounce. Oh, Yvonne's here. Yvonne, pop in the chat if there's anything that you think has been helpful from your work with PepTalk. No pressure though, if you don't want to. Yes, there is a recording. Welcome, Lean. Thanks for joining. Yes, there is a recording. I'm going to circulate that to you. If you want to just DM me your email though, and I'll make sure I send you a personal one too. So this is a good question. How much of the course focuses on building a personal brand? We do a module on that. There is a module on that. It's interesting. It's such a good question, right? So it is a part of it. This is not a personal brand course, right? That's not what this is. This is a course specifically for you to step up in your career. Having said that, you cannot get to the next level of your career if your brand stays the same, or if you have no personal brand, or if your personal brand is frankly damaging. If you have a bad personal brand or no professional personal brand, you're going to go, but you're not going to be able to go yoink, yoink, yoink. It's not going to happen, right? You're not going to have people tapping on you on your shoulder, left, right, and center if you don't have a personal brand. So it's one of those things. We do spend a module on it though, but then equally, the proprietary software that we put you through where you understand your strengths better, that shifts your personal brand, because all of a sudden when you speak about yourself and your value, that changes. So in a way, that's contributing to strengthening your personal brand, if that makes sense. But yeah, there is a module where one of the things that we do in the course is you post on LinkedIn. I make you do a post on LinkedIn. As I say, you're not always going to like me and the things that I push you to do in the program, but there's a method to the madness. And that is to push you out of your comfort zone, so that you take the steps that I know you need to take to get the results that I know that you want. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Yvonne. Oh, that's so cool. I didn't pay her to say that, I promise. So Yvonne has been involved with PepTalkHer for maybe, I want to say 3 or 4 months now. And she's saying here in the chat, it's given her more confidence and seen a difference in her performance, which is awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Yvonne. So yeah, and to your point, Kayleen, so the confidence piece shifts how you start to behave in meetings, in the office, etc. And then the confidence changes, the imposter syndrome work changes your personal brand even subtly, right? And then we do a piece where there is there's a bonus that you get as well that focuses specifically on your LinkedIn. But if you want to really overhaul your personal brand and that's the only thing you want to focus on, like there's probably another course that might be better. But if you want to improve your personal brand and improve your career trajectory and get paid more, then this is perfect. Yeah. So as I said, there's one module on it, but it's not every single module, although every module in some ways does ladder up. So for example, there's also a module specifically on networking and the network effect, right? And so if you have a strong network, that becomes a part of your personal brand, do you know? So it's kind of, I feel like they're all related, but I want to be very transparent with you about what the course is and what it isn't. And as I said, it works best for people who've had at least 5 years professional experience. Most people have typically had anywhere from sort of 8 to 20 years professional experience. We've had one person who'd had 3 years experience, and then we've had one person who was in her 60s. And she is amazing. She didn't realize how amazing she was. She was just like, it was so interesting on one of the calls. She was like, oh yeah, the Obamas invited me. And I was like, sorry, what? She was like, oh yeah, like the Obama Foundation. And she never mentioned that, like when we were sort of brainstorming, and she didn't appreciate that it was kind of a big deal that the Obama Foundation saw her as an important person. Like it was just this whole thing that she just didn't know her value. And I think that really sums up the course, right? Like we're going to help you realize your value. And to Yvonne's point, it's given her the confidence, and she's seen that difference in her performance, because I have noticed that Yvonne is now so much clearer on her value, right? And how that value contributes to the team. And when you realize that, you're like, oh yeah, I am kind of amazing. I am contributing to this team. It shifts the way you behave, right? And it shifts the way other people perceive you, which shifts the way that people think about you for job opportunities, which shifts the way that you start to post on LinkedIn. And so it's like this big snowball effect, right? So every module is like a building block, and they build, so that at the end of the 8 weeks, I'm excited to see the transformation, and for the people around you to notice that as well. And you'll hear tomorrow from the students who are going to join us, you'll hear what they say that their friends and family observed about them when they were going through the program, which is cool as well, right? And yeah, I love to see, like just this week, actually, one of the women, she actually quit her job and she started her own company, and she just put in a Slack this week. She just sent her first invoice under her new company. So we're all celebrating her. And that's really what I want to build, right? Like I didn't have that when I was a journalist. I didn't have that when I was working in corporate America. So, it's my mission to really build a community of like-minded, supported professionals who cheer each other on now and into the future, and into, as you all progress onto board roles and into more senior executive roles within your industries as well. That's what I'm building, and that's what I'm excited about. And I'm also excited to be unemployed one day when the gender pay gap isn't an issue, and when men and women are treating equally at the workforce, and when there's no unconscious bias. The goal is to be unemployed. The United Nations reckons it's about 100 years away. So perhaps I will have a job for a while yet. But yeah, that's really what I want to do, is support you. And I hope that today's framework about really understanding your personal piece, being clear on those external factors, and really delving into the nuance of the human factor, I hope that you can take that away and just keep that in the back of your mind as you're navigating your career from here, because I would love to see that. And I would love you to keep me posted too. If we're not already connected on Instagram, PepTalkHer is on Instagram. No surprises there. I'm also on LinkedIn. So if we're not already connected there, let me pop my LinkedIn in the chat. Say hi. Come and say hi on LinkedIn. I, again, am a bit of a nerd, so I'm on there quite a lot. So yes, connect with me there as well. Love to see you in the program. The course starts next week. Here's the link to join as well. The bonuses are available to anyone who joins in the next 24 hours. So you're going to get that video series where I've interviewed a bunch of top Fortune 100 executive women who talk about boundaries without being bitchy. How do you put in place those boundaries? And how do you kind of navigate having it all in the corporate world without dropping the ball on your family, friends, work-life balance? So that's really, really powerful. And then that salary negotiation script Bible, which has got the 40 examples of all the scripts that you could ever possibly need. So that's available for anyone who joins in the next 24 hours. Any questions, you can drop me an email. I'll put my email address in the chat for you. Say hi on LinkedIn. And yeah, class starts next week. So the doors are closing for the session at the end of this week. So you've got 4 days to enroll to make that decision as to whether you're going to go the route of, maybe not doing anything right now versus taking a step, enrolling in the course and like really getting the momentum going on your career this year. There's never been a better time because even though the economy is a bit weird, it is still an employee market, right? So there is still money. There are still new job opportunities. Like I hear it every day with my students. So there's never, it's a weird time. It is a weird time, but I don't think there's ever been a better time to look for a new job, frankly, if you're a high performer, which I know all of you are. So yes. So there is a payment plan for the program. So it's $397 for 5 months, right? So you pay that initial payment, and then there's 5 monthly payments. So you can pay it off over the 6 months. And then also if you're paying in a different currency, that can kind of help with currency fluctuations as well. It can kind of just even that out a little. We've never done a weekly payment plan, but I'm happy to talk about it on email if that's what you want to do. Thank you to the person who's just sent me a DM about that. Yeah, so we can chat about that privately, but the payment plan is helpful because it's just like you can pay up front $19.97. That's the cheapest way to do it. That gives you, I think it's a 20-something% discount. Alternatively, if you prefer to have cash flow, which frankly I typically do, and you prefer to go on that payment plan, it's just $397, and then that's just charged every month for the 6 months. So that can just help as well, because I know what it's like. I totally get it. So yeah, send through any other questions as well. Happy to chat to you about that. I know there was another question that I didn't get to. Yes, they are the same time every week. The course, so all of the coaching sessions are recorded, so you can watch them back. If you're 5 minutes late, or if one week you've got a dinner to go to or something, you can always watch it back. And then you can watch it back in 6 months when you've got a conversation coming back up, or if you've pivoted jobs and you want a refresher, you can watch it back in 2 years. You get in perpetuity access to the course forever, which is great. So you can always just come back and revisit that. Confidence makes a difference. Yes, no worries, no problem at all. So yes, the course is lunchtime for those of you in Sydney, 11:30 a.m. till 12:30 on a Wednesday. For those of you in Sydney, it's Tuesday evenings for those of you all in America, in North America, like I typically am. So 8:30 p.m. Eastern, which is 5:30 p.m. for those of you in LA. And it's very late for our European friends. So I'm sorry about that. We will in future run a different timed program to better support you as well. So any other questions, I'm happy to hang around, but it has been an absolute delight. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day today. And I want to applaud you, because taking a commitment to realize that you want to grow in this space is not easy. And then taking the time out of your day to learn with me today is not easy either. And it takes courage to think that there could be more. And I hope that you now know that there is more possible for you 100%. And if you join the course and you're like, nah, just let me know within the week, and we give you a full refund. No questions asked, no hard feelings. We can still be friends. It's totally fine. So yeah, that's great. I'll send the replay around. Thank you for that message to everyone. There is the link to join so that you get those bonuses today. And I'm excited. You are welcome, Aileen. Nice to see you. Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Kayleen, Sharon, Tiffany, Tashina. Awesome to see you all here. Oh, and before I forget, we have some prizes. Oh gosh, I almost forgot. We've got prizes to announce. We have a scholarship for the Career Level Up program. So every time people posted about their challenges in the Facebook group, in the daily Zoom calls, or via email to me, they got points. We've been tallying up all of the points. And so the scholarship for the program is for Jeanette Carrillo-Ruiz. Congratulations to you, Jeanette. And Gladine Frasso is getting a complimentary one-on-one career deep dive with me. So congrats to Gladine as well. They had the highest number of points. So it's a pleasure to award them the scholarships today. And I hope that you all will be joining us in the program so you get to meet Gladine and Jeanette and myself. And we've already had a bunch of people who've already enrolled, who are on the waiting list from prior courses. So we're all going to be in the Slack as soon as you join. So if you join today, you'll get added to the Slack today. I'll be in there saying hi, welcoming you to the group, introducing you to fun people. And yeah, I'm excited. Congrats, Gladine. So nice to see you here. Yes, congrats to the winner. And congrats to everyone who, we had there was 10 people that the team had to choose from because we had a few tiebreakers. So they figured it out because they're smarter than I am at those point systems thing. But yeah, it's really exciting to be able to support those two winners. And I cannot wait to see all of you in the course. Class starts next week, 7 days from now. 7 days? Yes. No, 8 days from now. Class starts 8 days from now. The course cart closes. So doors close in 4 days from now. Just so we can get you all the admin and your workbooks and everything sorted so you can hit the ground running when we launch the course. I am so excited. It's such a delight. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join me today. Any questions, shoot me an email, add me on LinkedIn and say hi. Don't be a stranger. Thanks for joining. I'm excited to hear your successes of success, your stories of success now that you are clear, and confident about your compensation. And I will look forward to seeing you all same time tomorrow for our student Ask Me Anything Q&A session. So you can hit them up as well with any questions you might have. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.